Welcome back to another amazing episode of Filter Free. I'm your host, Trey. We're back again with Beacon, Conjo, the R&B monk Joaquin, and the fan
Last but
favorite,
not least.
Bluetooth. All right, so we've come at you guys. We discussed what women need to know. We've discussed what men need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, both of those are conversations that's going to take more than one conversation.
Yeah.
We then follow that up with integrity versus getting the bag. Um, I wanted to do something a little lighter in theme, even though I was told that it's still
It's not gonna stay light.
it's not gonna stay light.
Yeah.
So this episode, I want to address just a few things. We're gonna kind of jump around just a little bit today, but we're gonna discuss first and foremost Malik Yoba. We're gonna discuss a few aspects that have spawned from the R. Kelly debacle.
That's a true debacle.
Yeah, that's a hell of a debacle. You know what? Honestly, this episode is gonna be a little Me Too-ish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When it's all said and done. So for those of you who don't know, Malik Yoba, star of the '90s show New York Undercover, had a role on Empire till he got killed off. He's been in a bunch of other things. And now
Yes,
he's
he has.
into the news about his loving relationship for transsexuals.
I don't know if it's a loving relationship.
Okay, his relationship with
He loves
transsexuals.
relationships.
He loves having.
He loves having
relationships.
I don't know if they're
Right.
loving.
We don't know.
He loves
I'm not
them.
saying
He has,
doesn't
he has
love
an
them.
attraction to
So
Trans women.
right.
Malik put out an Instagram post a few weeks back, speaking on behalf of a young woman. Please don't judge me for using the wrong terms, but a young trans person who committed suicide due to bullying. So he did an Instagram post, and during that post, he revealed that he loves trans women, and was kind of stated during that post that black men need to get over their hang-ups, because there are black men who do indeed love trans people, and they're just embarrassed and too afraid to publicly acknowledge it. So it goes from that Instagram post to an interview on The Root, and I got a little fiery. It was a lot of spice being thrown back and forth on that stage.
Was it really thrown like that?
Yeah, it was being thrown like the Salt Bay dude. So I want to get into this because the video he blows up because two questions were asked in regards to some rumors, and during his outburst he says, "We talked for 4 hours.
Yeah.
We went over this for 4 hours, and we weren't going to delve into the salaciousness or the questions that could damage my
Integrity
my
or image.
rollout. Yeah, my image. So first and foremost, I'll probably be the bad guy because I'm now going to reference Kevin Hart when he did his when he was speaking on The Shop in regards to Lil Nas X when he was asked why did you feel the need to come out. Kevin responded, "Why should anybody care? It's nobody's business what you do." I'm paraphrasing, by the way. I personally believe that's a very true statement. What you do in the privacy of your own home or the privacy of wherever that is, outdoors, in the car, wherever, that's your business. That has absolutely nothing to do with me. I understand that during their fight for equality, the LGBTQ plus, if I missed the letter, my bad. I understand that during their fight for equality, they kind of jump in support and latch on to multiple issues. You know what I mean?
With that Lil Nas X thing though,
Because I didn't think Kevin's response was rude or inappropriate.
well, you said it a lot nicer than he said. I think he basically was like, "Who gives a F about whatever you're doing or whatever."
Okay.
But also, even if his you're paraphrasing, even if his sentiment was like that's your business. The whole point of Lil Nas X coming out was not to. I don't even think it was about him, like him experiencing some freedom. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it was more for him to let other people know that it was okay.
Right.
That you didn't have to hide it. I'm getting on. I'm very popular right now. He basically was taking a risk and exposing himself to let other young people know that it was all right.
So he could be a role
to be who you are, to be a role model. It wasn't really about just like selling his business or whatever. It was
it's
to encourage other
because
people.
it's cheapening of what he's really doing.
Right. He's not just talking about his sexuality to be talking about it. He's doing it mindful of the impact it's going to have on the younger generations coming up that are really liking his music and really liking him as a person.
He knows the struggles that he overcame to even become famous in that industry. And he knows what may have stopped him had he not had the wherewithal to say, no, I'm still going to do this. And he knows other people will stop. And there's many, many people that feel like because they have that preference, they can't do some other things.
Okay.
They're not going to get popular or whatever it is.
So, all the men here on this platform, as far as I know, we're all straight men.
What you mean as far as you know?
Man,
I mean, we ain't know Malik Yoba was
been in the bedroom with each other.
to that freestyle.
So, oh yeah, Malik Yoba also did a freestyle in response. Nevertheless,
because
a few of us are lyricists and rappers, and
that was horrible.
It was bad.
So we were
it was
offended.
Inappropriate anyway.
We were offended musically. It was not not so much about the gay thing.
You should have wrote that on me.
Yeah. So I just wanted to preface this by saying that. So I want everybody to just understand that the views expressed during this episode is coming from a panel of straight men.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
give it some context.
Yeah, just to give some context, they say we definitely mean no harm. Not trying to offend anyone. If you do, feel free to reach out and let us know if we said something incorrectly, if we were naive about what happened.
Please educate us on it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody here is prejudiced where that's concerned.
Right. Not at
but
all.
we might be ignorant about certain things within that community. So feel free to educate us on that. We want to know. We're open to that. So
keyword being educate. Don't persecute.
Right.
Help us. We're asking you for sincerely. We want to be sure that we understand and get it right.
So with Malik, one of the things that has come from this is people have accused him that this is a publicity stunt. People from that community have said that you aren't necessarily caring about our plight, rather than being able to push the narrative for whatever your end game.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's a publicity stunt. I think that implies that he's doing it for clout. I think he's doing it as a defense against the stuff that's about to come out about him.
It's still a publicity stunt.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, because publicity stunt is, you going out and wilding out or whatever to get some shine on TV, right? I think he's really
traditionally.
He's doing like some Olivia Pope, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he's trying to clean it up.
Because he knows that this stuff, because this all really originated with a young boy making an accusation against him that he said he likes young trans women.
Yeah.
Yes. Young boys. And so that's
under 18.
I'm assuming that it was, because it wouldn't have been an issue if he just like 18-year-olds, right? Nobody would care, but the way it's being spun is that he likes underage boys,
trans women,
and so now he's going into this like panic mode, like I gotta like,
you
know what I mean?
And I could be totally wrong. When you were saying that, I was kind of glad that the LGBTQ plus community
picks up on it.
Thought that, because just me looking at it, I get a sense of things. And I just didn't feel like this guy is really an activist for them. I didn't feel like that. I felt an ingenuine air about it, as if, I know these things are happening to you, and you're using this as you're trying to align yourself with a community that has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Like to be honest, he's in entertainment. In entertainment, that community has a lot of power.
And they're getting at the moment a lot of sympathy with a lot of the pose is going on, so people are starting to see them in a different light.
So even
it's
right now,
ever growing.
Yeah, it's growing, and the
ever
sentiment is
changing,
changing a bit.
Right.
And so he's trying to.
This is the area in which he is being attacked. So he's being an activist for these people because they're the very people who would attack him possibly. So it's like, no, I'm on your side. It's like one of those things where it's really just diversionary attack. That's what I feel right now could be. I want to be wrong about it, but that was what I felt.
Yeah, my gut says he was a predator in the community. He's been going through.
Yeah, and also because I don't want to use that. Well, yeah, but
You are what you are.
It's out there now.
I just feel like I don't know about the young boys, but there's issues with Malik Yoba in different areas. The young boys is harassing of grown women that he has to deal with in his past. There's other things that when you're in entertainment you know about that even the public may not even know about.
Right.
So there's things I may be privy to that the public hasn't heard yet. I don't know what those things are, so I'm not trying to mention them. But I'm just saying there's a lot of things that might come down on dude's head real fast, and it's at the very least ill-timed.
He's damaged. He's doing damage.
Yeah, because if this all had happened during a time when there's no heat on you, then I'd have felt better about it. But there's a lot of heat on him right now. There's more to come possibly, so I feel like.
So in today's day and time, right, with the way that things are now, are we like society? Are they more accepting of men coming out and saying, "Yo, like I like trans women, I like boys, I like girls," like?
Depends.
Ain't nobody gonna be accepting about that under 17.
Yeah.
Like, ain't no
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
So
what
is that the
and
only
like-
issue? Are people really making a big deal out of this because he likes transgenders or transsexual?
I think they're making an issue because it's him, and from everything I've heard, he's a dick. So like if we gonna keep it 100, like,
Right.
because think about it, if he was a likable person,
Oh my God.
a lot of this may have gotten swept under the rug. It would have been.
Nah,
Yeah,
I think it's
Kevin
the
Hart
timing.
came
That's the
out
case
with
either.
it, or
'Cause look at
somebody.
Kevin Hart caught a lot of flack for his comment about his
Right.
son, and he's extremely
People
likable
love
and
him.
positive
Right,
and
right.
upbeat. You know, I don't
I think
that,
people are still making a big deal because he's bisexual.
I don't think
I
it's
think
because he's
people-
bisexual. I think
Yeah.
it's that. I think it. Crazy enough, so many people, the majority of people, are picking up on the fact that it's disingenuous.
I was just gonna say that.
It's
Right.
not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not like he's this
I
person
think they
who
can
loves
just
the
tell.
community.
Yeah, but
and,
there still is a base that's taken aback by the whole transgender.
It is.
thing.
Well, sure,
in
obviously.
America, there's going to be a base that's like that. People are getting a little bit more used to the gay thing,
Right, right.
but the transgender thing is kind of
It's like, yeah.
it's another layer for people to get used to. So I think at this point in America's history, they are taking it back like, whoa, Malik Yoba likes transgender women.
And especially the
People are
roles
gonna
he
be like-
plays, where there's these like
Yeah,
strong
these
masculine
supermasculine
figures.
dudes.
Right, right.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's something that I think it's kind of good that it's going this way. Actually, even though he was doing it for whatever his personal reasons were, but it's cool because it's actually bringing up the idea that you can be masculine and be gay.
Mhm.
Like gay does not mean feminine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
it
it's-
has
but
everything to
it's-
do with what your preference is,
Right.
not necessarily.
But is he the mascot for that? I mean,
Well,
I don't
I'm
mean
saying,
mascot.
he's just,
to-
I'm
yeah,
just saying
yeah.
that he's
No,
had this
he
image
said
where he was this
disingenuous
masculine
and it's-
image in you know the entertainment industry or whatever.
But I mean, but I look at it like this. We've had quite a few people. What's the dude? The football player. Last name was that came out the other year. Sam.
Yeah.
Sam,
But it's the same thing.
You know what I'm saying?
You still don't. But I'm saying
Michael
that if you
Sam.
looked
Yeah.
at Malik Yoba, you wouldn't have instantly said maybe he likes men, right?
Yeah.
right.
You would. That's not
So it's
true.
an unlikely person.
It's because of we've been conditioned to think that way. That these manly men only like women, and these feminine guys they like guys. But that's not how it is. If you ever been to
But
DuPont
I-
Circle in DC, then you know.
Yeah, I know some feminine acting dudes that only like women.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you
Yeah,
just
me
don't
too.
know. It's this
Yeah.
thing where we've been conditioned to think that like gay looks a certain way. You know. I.
Yo, we
We joke around, y'all. We joke
at the end of the day, we're all
around.
Listen.
boys, so you get those things to happen on the show.
It's all love.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just saying, but I mean, it's been for years though. We've seen sports figures. I mean, we all
Yeah.
do music.
Not enough
And-
for
and-
America to be used to it yet.
But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, but we've had those people. I mean, one of the greatest R&B singers of all time was gay.
That's R&B.
Which one are we
singer.
talking
You mean
about?
all of them?
Because I just found
Wait,
out
wait a second. You can't say
Nah.
he was gay though because he never came out and said he was gay.
So you have to come out and say
okay.
it.
Well,
he never said he was gay.
Who are we talking about?
Luther Vandross.
Really?
He never said he was gay.
He didn't have to say.
Little Richard never said he was gay.
What is that?
Again. Yeah.
I mean,
So
my
we
point
only
is-
gonna rock with Sam Smith.
No, but
And
so
the letter that Frank Ocean didn't actually say he was gay in, but everyone wanted to say no. He said specifically he was gay.
well,
'Cause that was a publicity stunt.
well, I'm saying the point is, gay doesn't look a certain way,
Right.
but we've been taught to think it does.
Yeah.
Right.
That all gay people dress as feminine, they're super extra,
Right,
and
right,
they're
right.
wear rainbows, and it's like we have this idea of what a gay person, a gay man specifically in our head is, and that's very much a stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Malik Yoba breaks that.
That could be the
by
bit
coming
that
out.
comes of.
Yeah.
Again, really hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right about that. I'm just
But I think society is still wowed out when they see it. Like
Yeah.
I still think people, like if we're honest, when somebody comes out that was with another same sex or whatever, everybody's like, oh man, did you see Dwight Howard?
Right.
Did you see this person, Malik Yoba? Like everybody's still wowed out by it though.
I think people think that they're so good at like figuring it out. They
yeah.
just tell
My
he's
gay
gay.
ass.
Yeah,
He's
like
gay.
there's a
It's my
term
gay
for it.
are is
There's a
like
term for
amazing,
that, yeah.
and then
Right.
and then to find out that you're not.
Yeah, you're not that good.
It's
I
like
don't think that people are so like minds blown about it as much anymore. It just seems like such a regular occurrence to me. I do think that
Right.
there are some untapped. Sorry,
Pause.
sorry for that word. That there are
That's
still
what Malik
some.
Yoba felt like.
Yeah, I still
Too
think
many
there are
of them
some
were untapped.
areas where it can still be shocking, like hip hop music, like professional, athletics.
Right.
I think there are still some areas where it can
Where it's still-
sometimes be shocking, but overall, I mean, I feel like
even with that, I don't feel like it's still like a huge buzz around it at the moment. It's like
Right.
we're on to, but that's even just a condition of like social media. Like you're on to the next thing so quickly. It's kind of
Right.
like
Yeah.
yeah, we're already over it.
I think one of the things, like, just for anybody out there who wants to look innocent about anything, one way not to do that is to go off on the person asking questions. I feel like in an
R.
effort
Kelly.
to
R.
look
Kelly
innocent,
was
like,
like,
I mean, we've seen this so many
This is
times.
my life.
And it
It's
never-
always the guiltiest ones that take
Yeah.
the mic off and throw it down and say this interview is over.
that never ends up good.
But like the interviewer was unfazed.
Yeah,
like,
because what
he's
you
the
gonna
most
do?
gangster human
Because he
being
was
on
drinking
earth.
his tea. It was like,
The way he was looking at him through other.
But the R.
Wait,
Kelly
the
joke too,
Birdman, Are
though.
you finished or are you done? Gail.
She was
yeah,
cool.
Gail, yeah.
She was cool. Like,
But
Okay.
he went off and he said, like, we went over this for 4 hours. Like, look,
I'm
I've
like,
done interviews before and I've talked to people about what they're gonna ask me. I've never spent 4 hours doing it.
4 hours?
'Cause I
That
never
means you
felt
really
like-
trying to prep it.
I
You
never
trying to
felt
hide.
right. I never
You
felt
had
like
to
I
hide it.
needed 4 hours to make sure of what happens in this interview. Right?
And then
But
what
we
the
don't
nigga
know what they
asked-
did that 4 hours.
By the looks of that dude,
it wasn't his type. That wasn't his type.
He might have been like, dude, you know what we did. You was not supposed to talk about this.
but it doesn't make you look innocent. So it's just like at the end of the day, it's also not smart because it doesn't make you look innocent
Right.
to do that and then demand their cards. Like they're gonna give you cards out the cameras. They're not gonna do that, dude. They're gonna hear
so,
it.
well, one of the words that were used earlier was predator. So
Right.
let's go ahead and keep moving with the
Towards that,
predatory
See where you're going
thing.
with that.
So, you also brought up America's other person that they love to demonize, Roberto Kelly.
But are you demonized if you did it?
Roberta.
I don't really think we're demonizing Roberto.
Well, can't demonize a demon.
You know,
Yeah, you can't make a deal.
Facts. But for
I
those
don't want to
of
go on
you,
record as saying Bluetooth called R. Kelly a demon.
okay,
That's not what I
Strike
said.
that from the record.
Strike
so
I said he had
Conjo
demon
did.
tendencies.
Conjo did.
I understand him and demons.
And if you got a problem with it, Kelly,
Resemble each
I don't think you can take me, homie.
facts. But for those of you who missed out on the live that we did to kick off the show a few weeks back, we kind of explained how the show came together, and essentially when they dropped Surviving R. Kelly, I was watching it with Brandon. he tapped out at like episode 3 or 4.
I never watched it. So.
I never watched
He
it.
didn't watch it. Yeah. But just from watching it personally, one, we weren't surprised. We've known what he's been doing for.
I was surprised by the degree.
The degree was what, yeah,
Okay,
that's what got
the
me.
degree.
Not
Yes.
by what happened, but by the degree of what happened. Yeah, I
Yes.
That was the same thing for me.
So, but while watching it, it kind of made me think: have I contributed to the toxicity
The culture.
of the culture? And it made me do a lot of thinking, personally. And then I decided to talk to each one of these gentlemen individually, and I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Let's just kind of get everybody together because they're all intelligent, they're funny for the most part, most of the time.
Except we talk about you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They're slightly petty, that type of thing. But, I thought it would be a good idea just kind of for us to get together so we could talk about it as a group. And I was like, hey, let's throw it on camera. Fortunately, as soon as I said it, the answer was yes. I mean, somebody didn't let me finish answering the question for them. Like, yes, I'm down. So that's how we got here. So when it comes to R. Kelly, the very first question I asked was, have I personally done anything to contribute to the culture? On any level. Good, bad, what have you, what have I done to contribute? So I want to ask each one of you all, do you all feel as though you've contributed to the culture in any way?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with
Can we define the culture?
Right.
rape culture. Is that what we're talking about, or predatory culture?
Predatory culture.
Which is still
culture.
rape.
Yeah.
Because he was messing with minors.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. But I was watching an interview with Charlemagne and Jadena. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying the same thing. We're in a period now where men are like deny. I would never. Yes, you would have, because that was the culture back then. We were raised on certain types of music. We were raised on certain types of ideas of what a man was back then, and we were taught that this is what women like. So when I was coming up, a man was, at least from my perspective and from my peers, what I was learning from my peers about manhood, a man was someone who had sex good, made a lot of money, and could fight well and was aggressive, and wasn't soft. He wasn't emotional. He wasn't somebody who displayed his emotions easily or whatever. That was just what a man was back then. At least that's what we were being taught that a man was in this society. And it literally took an act of God for me to wake up and start to realize that a lot of that stuff was falsehoods.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, somebody came and taught me that it was wrong. I literally had divine intervention and awakening and realized that all this stuff I had been taught was not correct. And so it's good that we're moving forward. It doesn't mean that you don't need to deny anything, because no one's here to penalize you for it. You know what I mean? We shouldn't be attacking these guys or the way these men thought. We should be admitting that it was wrong and moving forward and fixing it. Not to say that if you did something wrong in that time period that you're not held accountable for what you did, but the consensus in general was that was just how everybody thought. When we're talking about people doing drugs, everybody was doing drugs or whatever. When we're talking about Bill Cosby was an extreme case, but he wasn't the only one. That was the culture.
I'm not even sure it was extreme.
Right, but you know what I mean?
Because a lot of what it looks like is those parties that he was doing that at were known to be places where that was done.
That's what I mean. It was just natural for these
And
things
a lot
to
of
be.
people were doing it.
But I remember growing up as a kid, because I'm the oldest one on the panel.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I remember growing up as a kid, they had this magazine called Mad Magazine, right?
Yeah.
And in the back of there, they had advertisements of like different stuff that you could buy. So one of the things in the advertisement was something called a Spanish fly. I remember this when I was a kid. And they show a guy giving this little pill to a girl, and then the girl being all over the dude. So they would sell these pills that were supposed to be like aphrodisiac pills that you could give to a girl, and then the girl would be all over you. So this was being advertised in like children's magazines back in the 80s.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So when you think about the era that Bill Cosby was doing this stuff in, they were advertising giving things to girls to make girls fall for it.
Okay. Is that a true statement? Yes. But let's cut the shit. Like, right is right and wrong is wrong. You know, if you go up to a stranger and throw her against the wall and you do your thing,
But
and she didn't ask for that, like, that's wrong. It doesn't matter to
I'm
her.
not, you can't compare it, but
Right.
what he's saying is there's a subtle picture that's being given to a young
children.
person that says it's okay. for you
And
to
when
give
I
them
was a
that.
kid,
Well,
I thought
picture,
I'm gonna have
in the-
100 of those
Mind
pills.
you, in the picture, she's
That's what I'm saying. A
Mind
child's
you,
mind
though.
says when I'm able to make enough money, I'm gonna have a whole box of those pills. That's how the child thinks.
and
You know
mind
what
you,
I'm
in
saying?
the picture, she's receiving it.
She's
with
receiving
no
the
problem.
pills,
Yeah,
and
it
then
looks
she
like
got
she's
hearts
don't
going
look
over her
illegal at all.
head.
Makes it look like it's
Right.
okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
when you're advertising that to children and they're raised up with that, it's showing that this is okay
Right.
for you to give someone some type of drug.
And so what we have right now is just a lot of collateral damage because
A
of
whole
the
lot.
shift. It's the culture is shifting as it needs to.
It
But in
is.
that shift, anytime you have a paradigm shift, right? It never is gradual. It goes from one extreme to the other,
Right.
and then it balances
then it
back
comes
out.
back
But
to the middle.
Right.
in the beginning, it's going to swing. The pendulum swings from the right all the way to the left. It doesn't stop in the middle, right? And so it's got to go that way first.
And it's right that they're doing this with Bill Cosby so that we can say the people born in that era, like, oh shit, those pills are not good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But Bill need to go down. He was a nasty.
Well,
No,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
But anyone who got caught.
But he had to.
Yeah.
He was
they
just
had
the one,
to make
you know
that
what I mean?
statement
Yeah.
to let society know, like, yo,
It's
this
not okay
This
anymore.
is not okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But awareness still needs to. We
Right.
still need to be like much more open and talking about awareness on all levels because it's still there. It's just like you
It's
said,
there.
shifted. Like it's so deep in hip hop music
Right.
that we see that in a lot of our young black kids
And-
now,
and-
where the young black boys
Yeah.
treat the black women like black girls like they're nothing.
And let's keep
And-
it. Let's
and
keep it
they're
real.
fed
though.
those messages.
Let's
day
keep it
in and
real.
day
Like
out.
even growing up as teenagers, whenever you were trying to throw a party, you were like, "Yo, we gotta have the alcohol there. Sometimes you gotta have the weed there. Some girls like the cocaine. We gotta make sure you had the cocaine there, right?" To this day, people still party like that because they know that if they get a girl intoxicated, she's more likely to let loose
They're
and do
looking for
this.
that
Yeah,
result.
yeah, Bill Cosby was the extreme of what
It's the extreme of-
millions and millions of
Right.
men have done with alcohol.
And if
Right.
we're talking, and let's
And they
look
still
at,
do it.
And we're talking about looking at examples also in media. Look at the response to R. Kelly initially. There was video of this man peeing on a child, but because he was great at music,
and paying the child.
and making good music and making hits, it was kind of like, well, I know, yeah, he did it, but whatever, right?
Yeah, that was the thing. Like
But then
if we contributed, it was because we did not hold him accountable.
Right.
We didn't
And so
hold him
imagine
At
if,
the point at which we
Yeah.
saw him.
imagine if you're a
Yeah.
man, right,
Yeah, that's
who's
Right.
also into that stuff, and you see R. Kelly getting a pass, right?
Right.
What signals does that send to people? If we're not holding him accountable, why am I gonna? You know?
We gonna be honest, y'all. R. Kelly's rebrand after that was sick.
Yo.
Literally, like
It's crazy.
he busted on camera, and then came back out and called himself the Pied Piper.
Pied Piper.
Well, he was already calling himself the
He was a genius.
But then
I
he
mean,
came out
but
with
he
an
was
album
a
called The
master
Chocolate
pilot
Factory.
playing
What do
side.
kids like? Chocolate.
right.
His very next CD was The Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, man. But he was doing that from the beginning. And it was just,
With Aaliyah, those songs, Age Ain't Nothing
Age
But a
ain't nothing
Number,
but a
was
number,
man,
going
like-
down ain't nothing but a thing.
Now, people have
was all right.
argued over whether or not it's acceptable to still listen to his music today. Now, Blue, you and I
You
talked to
you
a
just
young
can't
lady.
admit to it.
Now, I personally
I
personally removed all of
Yeah.
his
Yeah,
portfolio
I
from,
can't.
from my
I think it's a
devices,
matter of
but-
preference, but
but
I
So, you know, you got Bill Cosby, who was Cliff Huxtable, right? And that dichotomy is really what we're talking about. And the question goes both ways. It's like, okay, does a person who does all these amazing things get to do something bad that renders this mute? That overshadows this? Or can you do something so good that all the bad stuff
Gets
doesn't
overshadowed.
matter anymore? Can either make anything else not matter?
I think it has a lot to do with the type of person it is. For instance, nobody has a problem with muting R. Kelly. Nobody has a problem.
No, people
Well, now,
Well, okay.
kind of.
and there's still people who are like, I'm never
Okay,
going to stop.
I mean, you
Yeah,
do that,
there's
though.
still people.
But
yeah.
if somebody was to do a call for never watching another Malik Yoba program again,
I don't think
Right,
anybody.
but Malik Yoba's
Right,
not on the
you know,
level
he's
of
not that relevant.
But what I'm saying is, I think who the person is plays a major part.
Like I
mean,
would hate for what Bill Cosby did to affect the Cosby Show.
Right.
If the Cosby
Right.
Show
To
was a
change
relevant show right now,
Because
I
he
would
did
hate
so
for
much
people
for
to
the
not watch the
community.
Cosby Show
Right.
because of that.
Okay, we have,
But at the same time-
at the same time-
we have an example of that currently. Then, I mean, they brought back Roseanne.
Oh, okay.
Roseanne.
But they
did
got
what
rid
she
of
did.
Roseanne.
They got rid of Roseanne, but they kept the show. So they check. You know what I mean? It's now known as the Connors. So it's just
I didn't know about
missing.
that.
It's just missing Roseanne. So they're showing that the show can still go on. The party can continue.
Yeah, but
Without-
the Cosby Show
it ain't
would
gonna
be
be
the
the
Cosby
same.
Show without
Right,
Cosby.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
but
it
it's-
was, yeah, it was,
You know.
But we just have to make it's the impact was amazing. It's very important, you know, in the history of our culture. Like
Yeah.
this show was a very important thing.
And it's
but
just,
we gotta
we're at a point at which we're lucky because it did what it did and it's over.
already right. So now we have to.
So the effect that it had.
Yeah.
And America's I think America owes something.
Yes,
something
and it's not to take away
of
from
what
what
it
he did,
is,
right?
To that kind of show.
it's still
what he did.
we should still be
And
able
it's
to
not
acknowledge
that.
it.
It's Fat Albert. It's the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
It's
Whoever else he put.
what's the a show after that? Where they
A
were in
Different
school,
World.
A Different World.
Yeah,
Well,
so we
all
so
those
much-
were Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
So much of this is really subjective, and it really just depends on the person and how they absorb the art. Some people have a hard time separating the person from the
Yeah.
art. It's all the same to them.
Right.
For me, for example, I can't listen to R. Kelly. And as much as I love Michael Jackson, I'm realizing that I'm struggling to listen to Michael Jackson.
I stopped listening to him
And
too.
I personally, I'll be honest, I personally don't believe that Michael Jackson did that.
I
but,
don't either.
But I still have a hard because it's all my
I've
my,
been
my
around.
mind
Because
is
there's
already
there's
some
tainted.
doubt there.
So
Yeah.
hearing the music, it just doesn't hit me the same way. So much of this really is subjective and depends on the person.
Right.
I think it sucks though. I think
it
it
does.
sucks
It's,
if you
it's
can't
whack.
if you can't separate
Well,
it because it sucks
I was-
for you and it sucks for the culture.
Right.
But if the person
It-
did something positive to the culture, now in Bill Cosby did something positive for the culture.
I mean,
right?
absolutely.
Now, when you're talking about somebody who just entertained, Bill Cosby wasn't somebody who just entertained. He did something positive for the culture. It's different. So R. Kelly really just entertained.
Right.
He didn't have a message
Right,
that
right.
made us all better people.
Right. You know, and,
No,
and
I
at the
believe
same
I
time,
can fly.
but that was
Right, one
That
song,
was the
right?
one song. But at the same
And it was
time,
She wasn't jumping
at
off
the
no
same
building
time,
to
it was
see though.
right.
in my head, that means that we should be even angrier at Bill Cosby.
Right.
Because
Because he had more
you
of a
knew what you
legacy.
had in your hands, right? You
I
knew
don't,
he
I
knew.
don't think that's.
I think he was cognizant of what he meant to the culture, and when you're in those positions, it's almost like you have a responsibility
Yeah, keep your nose
to
clean.
keep your nose clean. You know what I'm saying?
But
Well,
here's
who
something.
really
here's
does,
something
though?
to
Like,
look
like,
at.
But it
really,
doesn't
like-
make
we got.
It doesn't make you not a person, and people have their vices.
Right, absolutely.
I think we got to be delicate about the blame game, though. Like
Yeah.
at that point, listen, that's between you
What
and God.
Jesus
You
said in the Bible?
you going
without sin cast
yeah, you gonna deal with what
Okay,
comes.
wait,
That has
wait,
nothing to do with
This we
me.
gonna do now moving forward. You
I'm
gonna
just
Bible
going
verses
through the Bible,
every
man.
episode.
Man, I'm just
Hey,
saying.
we got to get that in. So, I think this points to an important aspect of art in that there's two sides to it. There's the
Yeah.
person who it comes from, and there are the people who receive it.
Yeah.
It's important now for us as a part of the black community that we take those gems
Mhm.
and we explain to our youth that like what the Cosby Show was beyond Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
It
Right.
has a presence, and what that was, we should be trying to make our communities into that now.
And also
not maybe a
So,
an
as
exact
consumers-
copy, but
So
there's
not talking about
the
man,
laws, the
but
family,
talking
the
about
principles,
art.
right?
Yeah, and also maybe as consumers now, we also maybe need to start taking some responsibility for the figures that we elevate.
right.
Like in 2019, there's a lot of transparency with social media where you get to really see like who a person is. Before, back in those days,
Right.
you didn't really know what they were
Right.
doing outside of. But now people go live and tell themselves all the time, and I almost feel like it's our responsibility now to hold these people accountable and not support them so
Right.
much and
No,
put so
but
much into
I want to
it's-
bring
it's-
up something. I'd like to bring up something to you guys and hear what your thoughts are on it.
Okay.
Because I think also we start talking about some cultural things because we're quick to throw ours under the bus.
Yes.
But when Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and all of these people had these 13 and 14-year-olds, the white community stood behind their people. They still selling those catalogs
Well,
and
first
other
of all,
Right.
catalogs
So
to this day.
what is
Well,
integrity in
well,
this situation? Is
well,
it
we
standing
already-
behind your
yes.
people,
But, and
or
we
is it
already,
standing behind what's right?
but we already know too, in America, the black man is always going to be persecuted more heavily than any white people.
Right. So
That's
should
a
we do
part of
that
what-
behind closed doors, or should
Okay,
we do that?
so
outside?
no.
Right.
First of all,
Family
black
business.
people need to learn how to unite. Black people got to understand that it is okay to discuss their problems. Like, we don't want to talk about depression in the black community. We don't want to talk about molestation in the black community.
Right.
You can take your pick on several major issues, mental health. We don't want to talk about that in the black community.
Yeah.
So until we can go ahead and be honest with ourselves, address the things that we need to address, we're always going to have a problem.
Sure.
Like,
But that's why he.
I mean, now, if you guys don't mind me just being honest for a minute, I'm gonna put some of y'all business out there for a second.
Okay.
But I know it's a couple members on this panel who were molested as kids.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying who it was. But, you know, I'm not telling you a
Right.
story.
I'm
I'm just
in
saying.
we like we got one
Yeah.
or 2 in 5 chances. Which
Let's
one?
spin the bottle on next episode.
But we had that. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't know if you men addressed it and told somebody at that time, if you kept it to yourself, if you did tell, was it received at that time? You know what I mean? But there are a lot of cases where that just
Well,
doesn't
you
happen.
know who's somebody like that? R. Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
R. Kelly.
I will speak to that because I was molested when I was, and I told you, I was molested when I was young. So I was molested from about the age of like 5 to 6, and then shortly after that, I immediately, because you know at that age I'm learning about sexual things that I wasn't supposed to know about. So immediately following the molestation and the things that happened, that was from like an aunt. We weren't really related, but she was like an aunt figure in my
Right.
life. Very quickly got into pornography, and then my first sexual encounter was at 9 years old with a cousin, and then from there it just kept progressing and progressing and progressing. I today am a recovering sex addict.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just being completely candid with you guys. So a part of my struggle with watching the R. Kelly documentary and why I couldn't finish it was because I couldn't help but compare myself to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a way,
Right.
was I ever as dark as where he took things? I could say no. I didn't do a lot of the stuff that he did, but you ask somebody else.
Came
And
up
also,
to
were
his
you in a
level either.
position? You know, did you have the
You know,
resources?
that's-
Right,
that's
I definitely didn't have the
That's the thing
resources.
about money,
but
man.
that was such a hard aspect of it, and seeing the damage and realizing like I've been this person before,
Right.
and seeing how it hurt those women and that they were
Right.
black women. You know what I'm saying? I'm at an age now where God is like constantly speaking to me and giving me a heart and a love for black women and wanting to just like support black women more. So all of this was happening at the same time, and that's why it just made me too emotional. By like I think it was the middle of episode 3 or 4, I had to break, and I just went in the bathroom and I cried for like 10 minutes. And so I'm completely an open book with that, but I would absolutely agree that. So I was molested at age 5 and 6. The first person I told I was age 28.
Yeah.
So much damage
Right.
had already been 22 years
Yeah.
of life struggle had already been done before I ever even like realized I need to talk to somebody about this.
So contrast that to R. Kelly, right? He told his brother when it was happening,
Mm-hmm.
and his brother told him he was lying.
Right.
But it
So
also had
what
to
he
do
was
with purpose.
doing,
That's
right?
what-
But
that was
that's
my
why,
first-
because
yeah,
they
that was-
didn't tell nobody, and they wouldn't tell nobody. So they told him, no, it didn't happen to you, because they didn't want him to tell. Because if he told,
And it came out about
then
you.
it would come out about them too. And I think that was a test for R. Kelly. He was telling his brother to see how it was received from somebody that I think would receive it a little better than say my mom or my dad or somebody like that. Before I go to them, he was testing that, and when it was received that way, he was like, okay, I can't tell nobody, and just kept that together. And I think that predators, monsters, and whatever you call people when they grow up, it comes from somewhere.
Oh, all of it does.
So
Absolutely.
while everyone has to be held accountable for their own, ills, everybody got ills, and those ills were passed to him from somebody who was doing terrible things to him as he was growing up. It seemed as if it wasn't even just sexual. It was like, it was demeaning. It was demoralizing. It made him feel like less than a person. And those things, if not dealt with, will end up making you into what other people might call a monster or things like that. And I think that we see it happen and we get real focused on the person that we saw do it, and we don't give enough credence to where it came from.
Right.
I mean, can I say something? Let me speak on that, because I was also molested as a kid when I was 5 years old by a babysitter. And it does have an effect. It has an effect on you. I was a very sexual child from the time I started kindergarten. I was getting in trouble for trying to have sex with girls at 5 years old. And it does have an effect on your ability to really process what sex is when people are making you be sexual at a young age. But I will say this, that you get to a certain age where no matter what you saw, not only was I a child that was molested, but I witnessed drugs, I witnessed people being murdered, I witnessed women being raped. By the time I was 7, 8 years old, I had seen murders, I had seen women be raped, all of this. So for me, it comes to a point where you start to learn what is right and what is wrong, and you have the ability to make a choice on what you're going to do. Because I knew that me being molested was wrong, right? So I'm not
At
going.
what point?
Right.
I mean, I knew almost immediately when I started getting in trouble at school for trying to do sexual things to girls.
Okay.
Like,
So I've heard
Yeah, because
men,
ours manifested very differently.
Right.
Because mine was still very like,
right.
covert. It was still
Right.
very, I would be in the house just watching pornography by myself or looking at magazines or.
so you wouldn't be faced with that.
There was no like public
reprimand for you.
Right.
Because that's what I was going to say. I've heard men who were molested talk about it differently. Like a woman who was molested always says molested, right? But a guy who was molested sometimes just said had sex.
Because you're taught
I
to
started
glorify-
having sex.
you're not
at a
taught
very
And that was
young
the
age.
thing,
They don't
because
see it as
This
molestation.
is also the thing. I was growing up in the entertainment industry too.
Right.
So by the time I had a record deal at 11 years old, 12 years old, I was being given women.
Wow.
When we would tour, I was being given women to, have sex with as a teenager. So my entire life I've been having sex. So for me, and the people I was around were all older men. So I would listen to their stories about having sex and this and that. And so for me, I just felt like I was an older guy in a young guy's body.
Like you're privileged to be
Right.
able to-
Like I'm doing the stuff that you guys are doing, and I'm 10 and a half, 11 years old. So it was almost glorified with me growing up in I didn't realize I was being molested. I didn't realize that at 12, when I had a woman who's 18, 19, that I was being molested. I didn't realize at 15 having a teacher was molestation. You know what I'm saying?
A girl at those ages almost always feels like something's wrong.
Right.
It's that masculine society teaching us that.
Right,
that's what
and
macho
they always
is.
say,
Right.
well, you
That
look
makes
like a
us
man.
think.
And
That's
so
what I mean.
I
That's
felt
how
like
we
I
think.
was a man at 14, 15 years old. I felt like I was a man, and people treated me that way. I'm in the entertainment business, so I'm bossing my road managers around. Hey, pick that girl, that one right there. And they would do what I would tell them to do, but I'm 13, 14 years old.
And that also speaks to what I think a lot of men deal with that we don't talk about it, and that creates sexual addiction in my opinion. This anxiety behind performing well as a man, right? You come into this as a kid, you're so worried about how you're going to perform sexually because you've been taught that that's part of being a man. Is that, that's part of the barometer. All right, what level of manhood are you on is based on how well you're able to sexually satisfy a woman.
Yeah.
And so you go into it. That's how you get into porn. You're watching so much porn. 'Cause
Right.
When little kids first start watching porn or whatever, it's not because we were super turned on. At least not in my case. I wasn't like, oh my God, I knew what was going on in this porn. I was going to the porn to find out what I was supposed to do when I finally did have an encounter with a woman.
man.
I'm like, okay, I know this is part of being a man. I'm going to eventually have to do this with a woman. So let me study. You know what I'm saying? What do I need? And it's probably why so many men are so terrible at sex. because they think what's happening in that porn is what sex looks like all the time, and that's not the case.
And it's also the anxiety.
The actors, and you
Of
so you
feeling like it's in your mind.
Right,
So
you're like-
have to
But
perform.
I think that's the thing. Like that's the important thing. Like when you're a child watching porn, you're not putting two and two together that these are actors.
you don't know.
Like,
You're like, oh,
you know
like
what I'm
this
saying?
is what I.
They've had cut scenes. They done
Right.
took breaks. They didn't come back. It's like wrestling.
Yeah, you-
Like you're actually doing the moves, but they already know that the move is coming.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Brandon can relate to this, but I know that for me, when I started realizing what was the effect of it, is that I felt like my value was based in my performance
Yeah.
Yep.
with a woman.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely,
was
me
taught
too.
that that was my
Absolutely.
value at 5 years old. You know, so there's certain sexual acts that I felt like I had to be good at
Absolutely.
in order for this woman to know that I'm worth something.
Mhm.
Is that
Absolutely.
when you got in the feet?
There,
No, feet came later.
there were periods in my struggle where I would say that I was almost, if not suicidal, because my self-esteem was a false sense of self that was based on the attention that I got from women,
Right.
and I constantly needed to be fed by women
Right.
giving me attention.
Right.
And if I wasn't getting that attention, I wasn't worth anything.
Right.
Because my whole life prior to that was just was women, was
Right.
lust, was
Right,
sex, and
right.
it wasn't even the sex so much. It was arousal. It was like just seeking things that made me aroused.
Mhm.
Right.
And if I wasn't getting that, I felt so low. I felt just
Right,
not human.
right.
So did that cause intimacy issues for you?
Absolutely. I mean, in my past, not now,
Right.
because my wife, we're good. I'm a faithful husband, and we have a great relationship. But in my past, there were definitely times because the sex, it's just so frivolous all the time. There would be times where I would go and attempt to sleep with a girl, but for some reason I couldn't get aroused.
Right.
It was because it wasn't even a real experience in the first place. I was seeking something I was never going to find in that situation anyway. So I just couldn't get aroused. There were definitely times.
And how long did it take you to realize that you had an addiction? Because I think there are like 95% of men who are addicted to sex and don't know it.
Oh yeah. Sure.
It took me a very long time to
Sure.
realize to
Yeah,
even look at
because-
the symptoms of addiction. If you're looking at comparing it to like other things like drug addiction, when I'm looking at these symptoms like side by side, I'm like, oh, like if I don't have access to this thing, it's altering my mood. It's, you know what I mean? Like
Right, right,
if my
right.
wife tells me no, I'm suddenly gonna start having this dialogue in my head to justify why it's okay for me to go seek attention from other women.
Right.
Right.
She's my dealer and she's not supplying me, so now I need to go
Right,
do something, right?
right.
So like
Right.
it's these
Wow.
things where it's before I had an awakening, I didn't even realize I was addicted to sex.
Right.
Right.
If not having access to this thing is drastically changing your mood, that's a problem. That's an addiction. It's not. This is not something you think in your mind that it's just I like sex, but that's not what it is. I like Doritos. If I don't have them, I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? That's like. That's what like is. I love ginger ale. All right, if I don't have ginger ale
for a year.
I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have access to sex and you turn into a different person, that's an issue. That's a very serious issue that you need to really do some self-exploration. It's not normal. We've normalized it, but that's not
Right,
normal.
right.
And
Yeah,
actually
it should be.
just going back into the whole conversation, I think that's where we're at, is that us who have had, because I've had sexual addiction my whole life, and then, I had a spiritual awakening where I went a year and a half of abstinence
Yeah.
to try to
I know
conquer
exactly what
that
you mean.
because I knew I had a sexual addiction.
And break your attachment to
Right,
it.
exactly. So I know that there comes a point in time where an R. Kelly or a Bill Cosby, where they know that I have a problem.
Right. Oh yeah,
Right.
But because they've gotten power and status, they've decided to make a decision that I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it at a high level regardless.
So yeah, and it's two mentalities about this. Sometimes it's they just make a decision, and sometimes they feel powerless to stop themselves.
Mhm.
Because people are
And a lot of
catering
times,
to the.
a lot of times that comes along with status and things like that.
Who's gonna stop
Because you have nothing but yes men around. you,
Right.
Yeah.
And you have nothing but resources.
Like
I mean,
I had
look
as a
how
kid.
many. Yeah.
Money is just a magnifier. Whatever you are is what you're going to be. When you have money, it doesn't make you anything. It just magnifies what you already are. So those two mentalities are how you're going to go about that. In R. Kelly's case, he told people who are really close to him,
I was gonna say.
if somebody doesn't stop me,
Yeah.
I can't stop myself.
Wow.
So
Look
a
how
lot
many
of
people
times people
enable that,
will,
you know?
yeah, people will try to get caught.
And to be fair,
You know,
we
people will
talked.
do that.
I mean, he kept recording videos after the first one. That was like a no-brainer.
First
to
of
me,
all, recording video.
yeah, it was
just add on.
of you doing sexual acts with a minor.
With a
But,
minor?
my point is this: we joke a lot, and we condemn or whatever. We might talk harshly, but I also think it's important to remember that it's possible to call a thing and have compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the
So
same
I can
time.
still look at his
Yeah.
plight and still be
Right,
compassionate about and have empathy about his situation and still denounce his actions.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I think
Right.
it's very important to do that. It's not either or.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think people are falling into this idea that they either have to
Yeah.
hate R. Kelly or
Right.
have
It's like
compassion.
you don't have to hate anybody.
No.
It's like
You
the
should-
mentality
yeah, you
where
should.
I don't think what he did was good. I don't call him anything. I don't call him a monster. If I call him anything, it's a rapist in the most
Right, because that's the
literal
term. That's the term for
Yeah,
it.
it's like
Okay.
he's a convicted rapist. So, but I really don't call him anything. I just call him R. Kelly, and realize that what he did was reprehensible on so many levels of manipulation of all kinds of people, including the general public. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad. And what happens to him should happen to him. But the compassion in me says what he did was not just unfortunate for the people he did it to.
It's unfortunate for
What
him
he did
too.
was unfortunate to him, right? Because
And I don't celebrate his downfall.
No.
That's one of the things
No.
that like I see a lot is people celebrate. Like, let's say somebody's even with this.
yeah, that's unfortunate too.
It's this Amber Geiger. Is that her name?
Yeah.
That police officer.
Oh yeah.
People are celebrating that she got a jail sentence. So while I'm grateful that the system is starting to hold people accountable, I'm not happy that a human being has to even go through any of that. You know what I'm saying? Either of them. The family of the victim or the person who's going to jail for 10 years because they did this thing or whatever. I'm not happy about any of that stuff.
The whole
I wish
thing is
none of that ever
there's
happened.
Nothing good.
I wish that man was still
There's
alive.
nothing redeeming about it.
Yeah, I'm not celebrating
But-
that.
I mean, but you can understand why people.
Oh, I get it, but
Yeah.
I just understand how the
Alright.
universe works.
I mean,
I can't
I
celebrate
get that.
your.
Yeah.
I get that, but I'm just saying, just point blank, period. I can understand.
Oh no, I get it.
You know what
for
I mean?
sure.
Whether it's right or wrong,
Sure.
just the understanding of why.
I'm not even saying right or wrong though, right? So one of the things I teach people when I'm advising them, in regard to spirituality is this, right? A negative emotional response to a circumstance is reasonable, but it's not productive.
Right.
It's not going to help you, right? So whenever I have these situations, I ask myself, does it serve me? When I find myself in a negative
Right.
headspace, is this headspace serving me? Not is it appropriate, not is it reasonable or whatever. Does it make sense for me to feel like that? Yes. Is it going to help me? No. So then I start working on changing that, right? So when we're talking about right and wrong with this, it's not that it's right or wrong. We're human beings. We have these reflexive responses to these situations, especially since we've been exposed to trauma for years and years and years of people not being held accountable, right? So when you see somebody being held accountable, it's a natural reflexive
Yeah.
response to feel joyful, right? But it's just recognizing the ramifications of doing that is
Right.
what I'm telling people.
Yeah.
There's this stuff creates vibrational patterns and frequencies and stuff in the universe, and it responds to it.
So when
Right.
something happens, there's an emotional response, and the emotional response leads us to act, which all actions really originate as convictions, and convictions are emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Convictions are not thoughts. Thoughts become convictions when they mix with emotional content, then we move, right? So when something happens, we think about it, we have an emotional response, and then the energy that comes from that is based on that emotional response. The problem with that is whatever that energy can't be sustained. So whatever we do with that energy gets dissipated and goes away. So whatever happens with that energy should go to fix whatever problem it is that caused the thing in the first place. If it doesn't, that problem won't be fixed.
Right.
Because
Right.
we're using our energy to celebrate something that shouldn't be the case at all. So
Yeah.
what we should do is, okay, we got an R. Kelly. Everybody hates the fact that he did that, and everybody hates the surviving R. Kelly thing and what it said, but it also said that he was molested, and it said that his brother was molested, and it said it ran through his family, and the energy that we're spending as a culture is, I can't believe he did that to those girls,
Shit.
right? But what about what was done to him? Because no one else should be held accountable for his actions. I would never say that. But had those actions not happened to him, it is a very large possibility that he never would have become the person that would have done those things. That is a psychological fact. So are we going to also use some of this energy, just a little bit of this energy, to try to deal with the societal issues that create an R. Kelly that needs to be survived?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right? How does that happen, and how can we stop that? My mom always says an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So how can we better deal with this? Well, we can always deal with something better by preventing it than we can deal by curing in jail for the guy who did it. Doesn't fix all the people that he molested. It doesn't fix all the people that he hurt. It doesn't even fix him.
Right.
It just puts him in a place where he can't hurt
Other
anybody else. But it actually doesn't deal with the root of the cause. It's like an antibiotic. It kills all your germs, the good ones, the bad ones. It leaves you open for sickness. But it doesn't cause you not to become sick in the first place.
Right.
So I think what we as a community, as a planet, should use our energy when somebody's going to jail to do is to look at the causes of all of these things. Forget the people. Look at the causes. Look at the generational things that are happening and say, well, how can I make the future better than what I see happening in front of me? With compassion for the people who it's happening to, and compassion for the people who aren't born yet, who will be subjected to things because of what we do now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree.
Well, fellas, it's been fun.
You sure look like a good person.
It's been fun. Listen, this is something that we can talk about forever.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, it's very pervasive as black men, as mixed men, as I'm not sure what we are, you know,
Men.
racially, genetically. We still need to step up and make sure that we're filling in these gaps. We need to make sure that we're pushing this conversation. So it's been great. I love you guys because I love the openness and honesty. I hope you guys aren't mad at me. I wasn't trying to put you guys.
Whatever.
on the spot.
I think I definitely think that it's good for us to. It's filter free, and we want people to heal.
These are necessary conversations.
And then they just filter free when we're talking trash about y'all.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, love's off when it comes to you, but I ain't talking about me.
So we just want to close this out and really kind of speak specifically to the people who have been through the traumas that we've discussed here: molestation, rape, other issues, things that might have happened in your family, and really just let you know, one, that we love you, that we are here for you. We're not just talking about these things on the couch so we can just vent and hear our own voices, but we want people to know that it's okay to discuss them and to talk about them. If you can, find places in your local area that you can go to, people that you can talk to, but moreover, if you feel most comfortable doing so, even reach out to us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We are not here to leave anybody hanging. The reason why we're having this conversation is because my man TL saw that there was a place that needed to be discussed within black communities, but all communities. And so we're here for you. We love you. We support you. Please reach out to us if you have questions. Anything that you want to know about us, or if you think it'll help you in your struggle with whatever it is that you have on your shoulders, know that we got your back. You got a whole crew here now with you. Yeah. So we love you and we thank you for viewing.
And we catch you next time.
Yeah.
This is Filter Free. Yeah.